item, which is the consent items, extend state and federal lobbying contracts for 1 year. Liz, do you want to just provide a little summary and then we'll move forward with that item?
Absolutely. The city has an option to extend the state and federal lobbying contracts. There are no changes proposed in the contracts due to content or cost. All the contracts are up to date at this time.
Okay. Councilmember Zvonek, do you have any questions about these contracts? And could we move it forward? Do you
Yeah,
have any opposition?
no questions and good to move it forward.
Okay, I am as well. Thank you. Approval of the minutes, Councilmember Zvonek, do you have any changes or any updates that you want to make to the minutes?
Nope, no changes, good to go.
Okay, we'll move those forward as well. We'll go to item 3, the federal legislative update. Lori, we'll start with you, and then Liz, it looks like we have some federal legislative positions to go over. Hi, Lori.
Good afternoon. Liz, did you want to go first on the positions on the federal legislation, or do you want me to go first? It does not matter to me.
Please feel free to go first, Lori.
Okay, good. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much first for extending our contract another year. As you know, we love working with y'all, and I think we've had a great relationship over many years now. So thank you very much. Okay, so I'm going to start with the update. Right now, House and Senate are finally back at the same time. It's been 6 weeks since the August recess when they were out. They are working on appropriations right now. The end of the fiscal year is September 30th. The Senate has been working in a bipartisan manner. They've gotten all 12 appropriation bills out of the committee, first time in 15 years. This week, they started considering a minibus, which is non-controversial bills such as transportation HUD, agriculture, and military construction VA. They're going to wrap it up next week. However, on the House side, you've probably been seeing this in the news, there have been several hiccups. They started with 2 non-controversial bills before the August recess, military construction VA, which they got through the House, and then agriculture, which they were not able to get out of the House Rules Committee. And a committee meeting and finalizing in House Rules Committee bills is required before you go to the floor, because they're the ones who tell you which amendments are in order and germane. So they were not able to get that out, which was quite a surprise. So they came back and they started with the Department of Defense. And they were not able to get that bill out either. There's a small group of Freedom Caucus members that did not want to pursue that bill. So I was very optimistic until yesterday that we very well could have a federal government shutdown. They only have 15 days to pass a continuing resolution to keep the government funded. The federal agencies have started putting together memos and work plans to explain how each of their agencies, how that would affect you as a local government and the states and others. So as soon as I see those, I know DOT is going to have theirs out soon. I will send that over. We had this a few years ago. I think it's been like 8 or 9 now. It was reimbursements from like DOT and transportation. It was, slowing down a permit that they were reviewing. The essential, and then also the National Park Service. Of course, it was closed to the public. So it's just a couple of impacts that you might see. Like you haven't drawn down your CDBG dollars or something like that. That could be delayed until the government's back up and running. So I'm hoping that if there's a shutdown, they will be able to come out with a path ahead. The speaker is trying very hard. I think there's only 5 votes difference between what he needs between Republican and Democrats, and now it's down to I think around 4, because Congressman Chris Stewart, a Republican and good friend of the speaker from Utah, had to resign yesterday to help his wife with some health issues. So it's a really, really close majority. So I'll continue to keep Liz and Roberto to see how it's going. Maybe calmer heads will cool down soon. And also want to congratulate y'all on getting the USDA forestry and community grant earlier this week. This is the first funding available for y'all under the IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act. So congratulations. That was a really competitive program. And then I want to highlight just a few more grant opportunities that are coming up soon. The city submitted for Protect a couple weeks ago. We're hoping to hear about that award announcement early next year. The RAISE program, which is very popular, should be coming out mid-November. The Bridge program is going to come out early next year, so around January or February. And then there's a couple recent Bureau Reclamation grant opportunities. I see Kathy's on the phone that she has in her hand, and I know she is looking at those for Aurora Water. Any questions?
Any questions, Councilmember Zvonek?
No questions. Thanks for that update.
No questions for me as well, Lori. Thank you so much. So Liz, we'll go ahead and move to the legislative items that the committee needs to vote on. I'll let you go ahead and just start down the list.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Councilmember Lawson. We will have 3 items to go over today. The first one is Senate Bill 1557, House Resolution 3238, Affordable Housing Credit Improvement Act. Essentially, this bill would revise provisions for the low income housing tax credits by increasing per capita dollar amount for the minimum ceiling, modifying tenant income eligibility requirements, increasing state allocations of the credits, and repealing the qualified census tract population cap. There are other notes detailed in the packet that you can see. The city is recommending a support position, as the changes in this bill and with the credit should increase the amount of credit available for building projects designated to serve for low-income households. So the expansion of the tax credit would further incentivize affordable housing developments in the city.
Okay, Councilmember Zvonek, do you have any questions, and do you support the city's position of support on this legislative item?
I think so. I saw Roberto, and I don't know if that was a mistake. His hand was up. I don't know if you wanted to explain
Oh,
something. or
I'm
if that
sorry,
was an accident.
sorry,
Okay.
Roberto.
It was a mistake. I was pressing the button and I pressed the
Yeah.
wrong hands up.
I just
So
didn't know if you had some more information for us. I wanted
No.
before I said anything. No,
Put it down.
yeah, I think I'm fine with this. Yeah, I'm fine with this.
Okay, and I support it as well. Thank you, Liz.
The second one is Senate Bill 1034, House Resolution 2367, the Truck Parking Safety Improvement Act. What this would do, this would authorize the appropriation of a total of $755 million for the DOT to provide competitive grants for municipalities to improve public parking facilities for commercial motor vehicles, or actually develop these facilities. The city is recommending a support position, as allocating for this funding would assist us in commercial developments along I-70 and developing safe locations for their commercial drivers. The city has been made aware that this has been a request and a concern from the developers in that area, and this grant could assist in funding those projects in the future.
Okay, Councilmember Zvonek, do you have any questions on this, and do you support the city's position of support?
No questions, and yes, support.
I do as well.
And then the last one is House Resolution 3557, American Broadband Deployment Act. This legislation would codify in statute actions from the FCC and essentially would preempt local authority over wireless telecommunications facilities and cable franchises, and also impose several new preemptions. So there is a lot of rationale provided in the packet. I'll go over a few major points that we have concerns about. Essentially, this would be a preemption of state and local zoning authority over the placement of wireless technologies, including towers and equipment. It would eliminate state and local government right of way, and for that to be managed by state and local governments. And then it would prohibit state and local governments from revoking cable franchises. This is very much disliked. As I've noted in the backup materials, the Colorado Communications and Utility Alliance Board had voted to oppose this unanimously. In addition, National League of Cities and the UN Conference of Mayors have opposed this legislation. The city is a member of all 3 organizations. And I do have other staff to answer any questions related to this legislation.
Okay, Councilmember Zvonek, do you have any questions for any of the city staff? Liz, and do you support the city's position of opposed on this legislative item?
Yes, absolutely. Support it, and no questions.
Okay, I support the position of the city as well.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And that concludes the federal legislation.
Okay, thank you, Liz, very much for that, and Lori as well. We're going to go to item 4, our state legislative update. Peggy, do you want to give an overview, you, Cami, and Tatsi, and then we'll go over with the state ballot measure discussion.
You bet. Happy to start off. As you know, there has been some shuffling of seats at the legislature. Senator Dom Moreno has moved over to the city of Denver and will be working in the legislative and policy role for the city. That has caused not only some vacancies that have been shuffling around both in the Senate and House, but has caused changes in leadership. Dom was the majority leader last week, on Friday, the Senate Democrats met and elected Senator Robert Rodriguez as the majority leader and Senator Faith Winter as the assistant majority leader. We are expecting changes in the committee structure and committee membership. I think there are some desires amongst the progressives in the caucus to have some more progressive members of those committees. There were several priority progressive bills that were stopped last year, and I think there's a desire to shift up the makeup of those committees. So we'll expect to see those changes here in the next month or so. Additionally, Senator Daphne Michelson-Janae will be sworn in this week, which will create an opening in her House seat. So there'll be a vacancy committee for that House seat. I don't know that we expect any additional vacancies in the next couple months, but it certainly could be some. It seems like there are, what did we hear, Cammie, that 1/3 of the legislature has not been elected to their seat, but has been appointed by a vacancy committee to their current seat. So pretty wild structure. Anyway, in terms of the legislative activities recently, the interim committees, task forces have been meeting. In the last few weeks, they have passed titles that are the starting point for draft legislation that's being created by legal services. These committees will meet in the next few weeks and pass bills out of those committees, which will be the basis for some of the legislation that will be introduced in 2024. We'll have a full list of those bills that will be approved by committees by the end of October and share those with Liz and the team. In terms of legislative outreach, we've been continuing to have meetings with our Aurora delegation. We should have those meetings completed by the end of October. Have talked about some of our priority issues with the delegation, including juvenile beds and removing the cap or changing the structure of that. Priority issues like housing, safety. We've heard a lot about RTD legislation and expect to see several bills that look at that. We're also talking about construction defects reform. That will be a part of the discussion around land use and affordable housing this year. So continuing to have those conversations with our Aurora delegation. In terms of the upcoming election, I know Liz is going to talk a little bit more about the bill or the ballot initiatives, but both HH, which reduces the property taxes but increases revenue for the state and decreases what would be refunded to taxpayers. II allows the state to keep additional taxes that have been collected from the sale of cigarettes and tobacco products. So both of those will be on the ballot in November. And then I know both Tati and Cammie were going to touch base about transportation and the sales and use tax committee hearings and a couple bills we expect to be drafted from those committees. So I'll turn it over to you guys.
Okie dokie. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to let you know that out of all the TLRC bills that were passed to be drafted, I think there are a couple that would kind of affect the city that we should probably keep an eye out for. And these bills will be finalized at the end of the month. There's an infrastructure improvements to reduce vulnerable road user fatalities bill. And we only have bill titles that were adopted. Nobody discussed what the bills would really do when they threw these titles out. So as we get that information, we'll provide that to the city as well. We're working on getting drafts of these. That's one. The governance of Front Range passenger rail districts was a bill that Representative Basenecker brought forward. The railroad safety measure was coming from Representative Mabry, and extension of free youth transit passes was recommended by Representative Froelich, and Senator Winter. The Water Resources and Agriculture Review Committee met Monday and Tuesday, and out of that, they adopted 16 bills to be drafted instead of 20, which was kind of a relief to the committee folks watching that and the members, I think. There were a couple there that we might want to keep an eye on. One is concerning non-functional turf in new developments, and the other one is impacts of conservation on water rights. So those basically are the bills that I think that the city would have more interest in than all 30 bills that were adopted out of those two committees. And Cammie was going to talk about the sales and use tax committees.
Absolutely. Good afternoon. The Sales and Use Tax Simplification Task Force met this week and requested several proposals. One bill crafts hold harmless language. The Department of Revenue also requested legislation to simplify their collection of local sales taxes, and also requested legislation to look at developing local thresholds that would allow for less frequent remittances. The committee also asked for legislation to improve the ability of information regarding local lodging and certain use taxes. I expect that the city will pay particular attention to any legislation that would add additional reporting burdens to the city, or additional time requirements to the city. Another tax committee that met this past week was the Legislative Oversight Committee concerning tax policy. They requested 10 bills to be drafted on a wide range of issues. Among the bills they requested would include modifying, updating, or repealing certain state tax credits and expenditures, also creating a permanent fund for state severance tax, and extending the earned income tax credit for an additional 3 years. The committee will also revisit the property taxation of short-term rentals. And finally, the committee requested drafting legislation regarding the Supreme Court decision, Tyler versus Hennepin County, and the government seizure of property for unpaid taxes when the value of property seized is greater than the tax debt. So we will continue watching these bills closely. Both committees will narrow their final bill list down to 5 bills that will be presented by Legislative Council. Happy to answer any questions or provide further information.
Just a question, and Councilmember Zvonek, I'll turn it over to you. Is there any way, you mentioned quite a bit, and I was trying to write it all down, and I know a lot of it will be in the minutes. Is there any way that from Liz's perspective, we could get like what you just stated from each of these committees? Just so I know that they're not formalized, but this is a lot of different topics. I know that National League of Cities is talking a lot about rail safety and rail information in my committee. So that's kind of interesting for me at the state level, but this is quite a bit coming from these committees that you mentioned. And I would like to maybe have that as, I know it'll be mentioned in the notes, but just an actual maybe spreadsheet or something that has these listed from these committees. Is that possible?
We've sent that information to Liz. She can pass it on to you, or we can send it directly to you, whatever works best. Happy to
Okay, I
share
didn't
the
know it was
information.
completed. So,
Yep.
because this is quite a bit, and it looks like there may be a lot of legislative items coming up that the city's probably going to have to be looking at and maybe taking some positions on. So, Thank you for that, all of those updates. Councilmember Zvonek, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, thank you. So this is for next session, Peggy and team. So you talked about meeting with some of the legislators. I think one of the things that obviously I'd want some feedback from my colleague on this, something to watch for, and it touches on affordability, and that's the property tax crisis that's looming. I know there's a ballot measure on this year, but I hope it fails. I know CML recently took a position against HH, and I actually want to bring forward a resolution to have the city take a position against it because it's not real property tax relief. And I believe it will fail. And when it does fail, homeowners across Aurora, whether you're a homeowner or a renter, are going to be faced with astronomical increase in property taxes, anywhere from 30 to 40%. The repeal of Gallagher froze the rate, so you're going to feel the entire thing. And so what I hope is that as they go into next session, that instead of doing some half-baked pretend fix like HH, that they actually do something to claw back and roll back some of the increase that ratepayers and their homeowners are going to feel, because it will impact the cost of living. Rents will go up. Seniors who live on fixed incomes in parts of our cities are going to see what they pay on a monthly and annual basis go up by 40%. And it's not acceptable. So I hope that we're proactive in asking the legislature, because they can do something about it. The reason HH is on the ballot is because it's a tax increase. You don't have to ask voters to decrease taxes. They could have done that on their own. They have to ask voters to increase taxes, which is why HH is on the ballot. It's not something they just did legislatively last session. So I hope we can figure out, at least have the conversations about real property tax solutions needing to be found. I understand there will need to be a compromise, but I think that's something we should be on the front end of. And so I just wanted to put that on all of your radar.
I think that's a really good point with regard to affordable housing as well. I mean, that's such a intricate part of people's budget and their monthly expenses. So yeah, that's something we can start to have discussions and add that to our talking points too when we're meeting with the delegation, and ask for some solutions next session around that property tax issue. I know that the polling I've heard is that it's pretty tight, which I think you may be right that could defer to a no position if it's that tight, because as we know that often, as we get closer to the election, there's more no's than yeses. So this could be a really big issue for next session. We'll be sure to add that to our discussion items as well.
And Councilmember Zvonek, I've been part of those conversations, pretty much meetings, so I definitely will have that as a note in the discussions that I've been having with our legislators, so as well. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay.
I just wanted to, Councilmember
Tammy.
Lawson,
Yes, Tammy.
sorry,
That's okay.
take this opportunity to underscore what Tatsi said. Basically, these are just bill titles that were thrown out. And as these bills gain traction and make their way through each committee, we'll start to gather more information and learn about kind of the meat that's in these bills. So apologize for kind of the overwhelming preliminary list of bills, but more information's definitely to come.
Yeah, and I was just asking for if Liz has it just for me, and maybe the other committees members don't need, I just want to just kind of see, because as I'm on other committees, I just, I want to see how the relation of each of the committees are. So that, that's just for me, maybe per se, but yeah, if we could just do that. And I do have an additional question. Is there anything that came out of the task force, or when is that task force supposed to start for the court data reporting? Is there anything did that start this summer, or is that going to be in 2024?
It has not met yet.
Okay.
We can circle back with CML and get an update on what they're hearing. They probably have the most up-to-date information. So
Okay.
happy to circle back. I know Judge Day was appointed to it, but I don't believe that it has started meeting yet. So we'll get you an update on that and shoot you an email on it.
Yeah, because we don't start the CML committee meetings until October, so that's why I was just asking if you knew something. And I see Councilmember Jurinsky is here, so thank you, Councilmember Jurinsky, for being here. We just took some legislative position on some items, so I think Councilmember Zvonek and I were kind of in accordance of moving those forward, but did you want us to go back so you could take a position since you're here? If we could
If
review
you both
them?
agreed on positions and I don't need to break any ties, then I'm good with
Okay.
it.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure your voice is heard on those. Okay, thank you so much, Cammie, Tatsi, and Peggy for those updates. I appreciate it. Liz, it looks like we have a couple of the state ballot measure discussions to talk about and have a discussion on.
Yes, so we have two ballot measures to discuss, Proposition HH and then Proposition II. In the backup materials in the packet, you should have all of the information that is currently publicly available about these measures, their impact, the feedback that has already been provided. As Councilmember Zvonek mentioned from CML, especially, they have already taken a opposed position. If it's all right with the committee, I figured we would go just do each one individually. For Proposition HH, the title that they are currently working with is, shall the state reduce property taxes for homes and businesses, including expanding property tax relief for seniors, backfill counties, water districts, fire districts, ambulance, hospital districts, and other local governments and fund school districts by using a portion of the state surplus up to the Proposition HH cap as defined in this measure. The city does not have a position recommendation and will lean on the recommendation and notation from the council to position and efficacy.
Okay, Councilmember Zvonek, I guess you want to have a discussion about this, and do you want to take a position as a committee on this, and what would your position be?
Yeah, I think we should oppose it because despite what the language says, it's not property tax relief. They're taking refunds that were going to be due to taxpayers anyway and paying down the property tax rate. And again, if they were really reducing anything, they wouldn't have to go to voters. They don't have to ask permission for a tax cut. They only have to ask for a tax increase. And that's exactly what HH is and will amount to. This won't actually help seniors. It won't help homeowners. I think we should take a no position. I think we should, and I recently changed or brought forward the rule change to council so that we could take a position on a statewide ballot measure on statutes without a unanimous vote. And I think we should bring it forward to the full council and ask for all of our colleagues to weigh in on this. This is a incredibly important topic. As I mentioned, the property tax increase is going to hit everybody, whether you're a renter, business owner, homeowner, and it's going to particularly hit those on fixed incomes who, maybe their only expense is their mortgage. And all of a sudden you're going to see a 40% increase in your property tax bill. And it's something that we need to do better. And I hope that we can agree that we should take a no position and move this forward to full council for a formal resolution saying that we oppose it.
Okay, and then Councilmember, and then Roberto and Liz, just for a formality standpoint, we're going to take a position on this for the Pfizer committee, and then do we need to do a Part B to move this forward for the full council, of course, right? Is that the Roberto? I just want to make sure I got the formality of what we're supposed to do in the process.
That's correct.
Okay. So let's deal with the first question. Councilmember Zvonek, I already got your position on it, a no position. Councilmember Jurinsky, what's your position on this as well, HH?
I'm also a no.
Okay, and I'll be a no as well. Our next question is to move this to the full council to take a position on it. And then Councilmember Zvonek, just a little bit of a clarification. If we're moving this forward to the full council for discussion and to take a position, are you still going to bring a resolution forward as well? Or is it going to be something different?
I think we can if this would be the same effect, right? It would be the city of Aurora. If there's three of us and three more of our colleagues agree with us, then that would be the formal position of the city with regards to this measure.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that was just clarity on that. So is it an agreement with the members of the committee to move this forward to the full council for discussion and for a position? Councilmember Zvonek?
Yes, I'm a yes.
Okay, and I'm a yes as well. Okay, Liz, let's move to the next one.
The next one is Proposition II, and the language currently for that is, without raising taxes, may the state retain and spend revenues from taxes on cigarettes, tobacco, and other nicotine products, and maintain tax rate on cigarettes, tobacco, and other nicotine products, and use these revenues to invest $23,650,000 to enhance the voluntary Colorado preschool program. The city does not have a position recommendation and will lean on the discretion of the council.
Councilmember Zvonek and Councilmember Jurinsky, do you want to have a discussion about this? And should we move this forward to the full council force position by the city?
So my position is no. I don't think that, and I do think we should move it forward. So no and yes, move it forward.
Okay, Councilmember Jurinsky?
I'm the exact same, no and yes.
Okay, so okay, I'm just looking at the impacts of this. I will be the same on this as well. I guess what my question is, and I don't know if there's someone here from tax and licensing, Trevor, the impact of this, from what I was reading, it would have a significant impact on the city. I just want to make sure that what we're doing here, I know we're taking positions on these type of items, but I just want to make sure the impact of this would be directly to the city, depending on what the vote is, correct? Is Trevor here? Or I can.
I don't believe Trevor is on the call
Okay,
at this time,
okay,
but
well,
before we bring this to the next council, we will provide a entire fiscal impact
okay,
that this will have for the councils.
okay. I'm fine with moving it forward. I'm a no. I would like to hear the fiscal impact though. So if we could have that prep for the backup, and then I can, that would be important for me as well.
We can have that.
Okay, Liz, is there any other additional legislative updates that we need to do or take positions on?
I have nothing additional for this committee.
Okay, all right. So
Peggy has her
5.
hand raised. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, Peggy. Go ahead.
I don't know how to do it with the little person, so I
Oh,
just
no
do it
problem. Go ahead.
myself.
Go ahead.
Thank you guys very much. Just wanted to echo gratitude about renewing the contract. We've loved working with you guys and really appreciate the relationship and the experience that we've been able to have with you. So thank you.
Well, working with you guys for a long period of time, you guys do a fabulous job. So I really do appreciate you as well. So
Thank you.
okay, so we're going to go to item 6. I'm sorry, item 5, the water update, the Biney tour, C3 base camp. Is Greg Baker here?
Greg is not, so I'm back. This is Kathy
Okay.
Kitzman.
Hi, Kathy. And any other updates you want to provide from the legislative standpoint, or anything else that we need to know, letters or anything we have to do here, discuss?
I just have informational items today, and so I'm glad Greg put forward the Colorado Competitive Council. They had a 2-day tour on September 11th and 12th, and they requested to include Binny water purification plants on the tour. We hosted them for about an hour and a half on the 12th, and providing an overview of Aurora Water and, of course, the treatment plants. There was a 50-person attendee list that included Representative Ricks and 7 other state representatives. They were very engaged, and it was really great to host one of the C3 tour stops. And I'll just add that Peggy O'Keefe was on that tour. And so I hope she concurs that it was a good stop. Excellent. For interim committees and task forces, the Water Resources and Agricultural Review Committee, they did request 16 bills be drafted in their last meeting. And since it's both water and agricultural issues combined, about half of them are about water, about half of them are geared towards the agricultural industry. For water issues, we only have the titles, but it's across the board, just a lot of different topics: water reuse, non-functional turf, agricultural conservation impacts on water rights, water quality, green infrastructure, groundwater. So we're looking forward just to seeing how those bills are drafted and what they say. In addition to the Water Resources Review Committee, we still have the Wildfire Matters Review Committee to get their bills drafted. And of course, the Colorado River Drought Task Force will likely have some bills as well. So it's going to be a busy end to the interim.
Okay.
And then one last thing, Aurora Water State Lobbying Contract. The requests for proposals in the ward are in process. And I believe purchasing is planning on including the contract on a future weekly report to council. So I'll just give very brief updates to FSAR, and then ultimately you should see it on a weekly report.
Okay. Thank you, Kathy. Is there any questions for Kathy from the committee? All right, Kathy, thank you so much. It's great seeing you.
Thank you.
Is there any miscellaneous matters for consideration from the committee? Councilmember Zvonek, Councilmember Jurinsky. Nada? Okay. Our next tentative meeting, or our meeting, is scheduled for October 20th. Right now, is there anything in the committee's members' schedules that could potentially need to change that, or are we good for that date as of now?
Works for me.
Okay, Councilmember Jurinsky?
It works for me as well.
Okay, all right. Well, that is it. Thank you so much, Councilmember Zvonek, Councilmember Jurinsky, everybody here. Have a great, great weekend. I do have to say go Buffs because I do have a couple degrees from there. So, we'll see.
Dustin will
I
fight
see
you.
you there, Dustin.
Dustin will fight you, Angela. He'll fight
I,
you.
I know what's going to happen. It's going to be ugly. I know it, but
You get them, Councilwoman. You get them.
Hey, I gotta be Buffs. So.
CSU.
There we go.
All right. See
Have
you
a good weekend, guys.
Bye.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.